Hey there, everyone. My name is Micah Curtis.
And I'm Alex Baldwin, also known as the Hatman.
And welcome back to the Overflow, where we answer all of the questions that we were unable to get to before the end of the podcasts of the previous week. And if I'm a little out of breath, I am sorry. I've been boxing. And I took a hard liver shot tonight. 17-year-old kid who is probably like a 155er. And I'm obviously a heavyweight. He got in on me and just drilled me right in the liver because I'd been hitting him with a pretty stiff jab. And he's just like, whack! I'm like, you little fucker. So, I'm a little out of breath.
Old night of drinking in just a couple seconds.
Yeah, it certainly feels like it. So, but I do need to apologize for something. First, for this being so late. My computer screwed up the initial recording. So we have to re-record most of the questions on politics, all except for one. So what you're going to see is I at least wore the same shirt and did not cut my hair yet, so I kind of look the same as I did 2 days ago, but I trimmed my beard down a bit. So there's going to be a little bit of difference for those of you playing the home game. But needless to say, though,
that the cut.
Yeah, needless to say, though, this has been it was my fault, and I'm still trying to get used to the schedule of working 7:30 until like 4 o'clock, and then having an hour to myself at home, and then going to boxing practice Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and still getting stuff done. So I'm going to have to try to figure something out in regards to getting work done on a more efficient level. I'm thinking I might have to start doing the overflow earlier in the week. So we'll get it figured. All right.
We will.
So Hatman chose yesterday for us to start with politics. That's what we're going to be doing today as well. So, let's get started once again. John Weitzel asks, what could be done to make the current political system less broken? Now, and you're going to hear us say, my answer last time, my thoughts are the same, is I don't think the political system in America is broken. I think that a lot of other ones are. I think that, the United States system in its concept is built to prevent tyranny, for better or worse. It is our nation comes from Lockean philosophy in a lot of ways. So a lot of people who have never read John Locke or have never taken civics class have no fucking idea how this government works. And that's why we constantly get people who say that they want to change it. And they don't really think about the concept in general or the context in which the nation was founded. And these are people who have sort of goofier beliefs, as I like to call them, the rare ones on the right. You know, like alt-righters don't read is sort of a meme of the channel at this point. But I also know guys who say that they're monarchists who don't seem to really understand the philosophy either. And I'm not arrogant enough to think that if they understood the philosophy, it would immediately change their mind, but they're not arguing against the philosophy that founded it. They're arguing this sort of pie in the sky, if everything was perfect, this would be the best perfect sort of way of looking at it. You know, it's utopian arguments, and I don't like utopian arguments. I like arguments that are grounded in reality. And when you take arguments that are grounded in reality, a system like the United States with 3 branches of government, none of which that is more powerful than the other, is perfect to do so. The big thing is that you have to be committed to the Constitution itself, which we're starting to see less and less people become devoted to, and that sort of bugs me. You know, even on the right, you know, we had in the Missouri primaries for the Senate, you had Joshua Hawley against Austin Peterson, and many of you know I'm an Austin Peterson supporter. And Peterson lost the primary, and part of it was because the establishment Republicans and even Trump put their weight behind Hawley because he's been around for a long time. And I still think it's a foolish mistake because Hawley's very soft on guns. He's very soft on immigration. So we basically we may have, if he wins the primary against the Senate electoral against Claire McCaskill, we might have another neocon in there. instead of a true conservative. And that bugs the hell out of me. So there has to be a dedication to what the system is, and I think that's where the problem lies, not the system itself. You know, the government needs to see less Ocasio-Cortezes and less Bernie Sanders, and more politicians that think America is a good thing, that our concepts are a good thing, because America is not just a piece of land. We are the first nation, in a sense, founded on an ideal and founded on a philosophy. Well, I guess it's sort of a synonym, but you get my drift. Hatman, what are your thoughts while I drink my water here?
Well, I think he's more asking about what we were talking about on the main podcast about the two-party system being broken, and I think to a degree, but that's mostly because both parties want to keep themselves around.
Yeah.
You don't want any sort of third party coming in there and threatening it. And then you've got the debate commission, and that definitely keeps third parties down. Mm-hmm. And of course, unless they can get that 5% threshold, they're not going to get federal funding either. Exactly. But at the same time, it's like those parties still have to work hard. Mm-hmm. And yeah, the internet is doing wonders for that. I mean, the last couple of election cycles, the Libertarian Party, even though the guy they nominated wasn't the best candidate, still did gangbusters. I mean, they actually crossed a 1% threshold. Beforehand, that was basically impossible.
Yeah.
I mean, look, Ross Perot did it, but God, he had all the money. I mean, mm-hmm. he bankrolled his own thing, for God's sake. But
and he wasn't even Libertarian; he was Reform Party.
Yeah, yeah. He was truly an independent running for office, but still, and we talked about it a little bit too, that naturally you're going to move back to a two-party system, because nobody likes coalition governments. Nobody likes to have to make alliances, and it feels like you're just going to get that sort of gridlock anyway. It's just like how you have independent voters in the Senate that end up siding with Democrats 9 times out of 10. I mean, for God's sake, Bernie Sanders lists himself as an independent.
But he's never voted against the Democrats at all.
No. And he actually won the Democrat primary. And he's going to turn it down and say, no, I'm an independent. But, yeah, it's not, honestly, I think it's more people are broken than anything else. If we had better candidates, I don't think people would be complaining as much about the two-party system. Mm-hmm. If there was more of an ability to wiggle around. Stay true to conservative principles and stay true to liberal principles, but don't be such a damn hardliner on it. It's major on the majors and minor on the minors. Mm-hmm. You don't have to vote according to the party platform 100% of the time. You shouldn't. Nobody should be expected to do that. Yeah. Because at that point, you're not an individual. You're a party asset. Basically. And that's not how government is meant to be run.
No, you're meant to be a statesman. And that's one thing that's sort of lost. Politicians are assholes. Statesmen are good men. Or women. I'm not saying a woman can't be a statesman, but you know what I mean. Regardless, I think inevitably, when you look at government and you look at the way that people look at government, it's whether or not people are even able to look at people as broken. It's I'll be talking about it on Comics Crusade. There was this big article about they took one page from the most recent Batman comic and said Batman's an atheist. No, if anything, he's an agnostic, and his whole spiel is about how man cannot ascend to godhood. A man cannot become the Superman. It's basically giving the finger to Nietzsche. And trust me, I know Nietzsche. So basically saying that for humans, the Ubermensch is not possible. We will never become God. We will never become godlike, truly, because we are flawed. And that's actually something that's a Christian belief. So, yeah, he's closer to an agnostic than an atheist or an anti-theist. So, but people just get boners. Oh, SJWs are retarded, man. Regardless, I think that at the end of the day is what we have to look at, is that, it's more the people than anything. Would I like a third party? Maybe, just because I don't see deadlock as a bad thing necessarily. Because if we had deadlock in the Obama years, our economy wouldn't have gotten busted up like it did or limped along, in spite of Obama, basically putting laws against everything he could get his hands on. And then when the Senate turned Republican, he's like, well, I have a pen, and I have a piece of paper, and I'm Barack Obama, so I'm going to do what I want, because I'm corrupt as fuck. Fuck Obama. Anyway, but yeah, that's our answer on that one. Let's go ahead and move on. Yeah. Swordsman100 says, is there anything we can do about social media sites banning people? The conclusion that we came to last time was there needs to be some sort of an antitrust look into social media.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, the competitors to these sites are very tiny. And there seems to be a political consensus among Silicon Valley to shut down certain types of speech. And at that point, you're not providing a service anymore. At that point, you're protesting. At that point, you, technically speaking, could be infringing upon someone's rights. And or at least Hatman, I thought, made a very convincing argument, and that I'm kind of echoing it. But Hatman, go ahead and go a little bit more in depth so I don't butcher your argument.
Yeah, it's basically the idea that you're being banned from the service is different than, well, let me. God, of course I'm going to lose my words. Let me say it like this. I think that infamous XKCD comic about censorship is what's really driven people into thinking, okay, well, it's only censorship if the government does it. Mm-hmm. It's never censorship if individuals do it, if private enterprises do it.
Yeah.
Well, no. I mean, there is a concept of free speech, and then there's the legal definition of free speech. And you're not abiding by the concept, the philosophy of free speech when you say people of this ideology are not welcome on the platform. On top of that, when you say they're not welcome on the platform, but they can go and make their own, and then you go and actively work to suppress them when they make their own. Take Gab, for example. They built their own platform, meant to be an alternate version of Twitter. They've been dropped by their host how many times now? Like 2 or 3, I think?
2 or 3. And I think Minds also got into some trouble early on, too.
Yep. They got dropped from Patreon. They've been unable to process PayPal payments, if I remember correctly. And it's like one thing after another. Like, how are you able to do this? I mean, when your host drops you, then what are you going to do? Okay, well, you could build your own server and run it straight from there. Okay, but then you're going to have maintenance costs. You're going to have like a fuck ton of electricity that you have to use, so that's going to be a major cost too. Maintenance, upkeep, all that stuff, that costs money. So you need to be able to have people, contribute to the site to help pay for it. Unless you've got a ton of venture capitalists coming in there, you're going to need money to pay for it. You're not going to have it on hand. Mm-hmm. But then what happens? PayPal and Stripe decide that they're not going to do business with you because they don't like your politics. They don't like the way you run things. So now you can't process payments anymore. Okay, well, I guess you could just take people's money straight from like their credit cards or whatnot. Oh no! Now you got people like MasterCard that actually will not process, or not even process payments. They won't even allow payments to be made to anyone that they deem as a risk. Okay, well, now you can't do that. What are people going to do? Mail you checks and stuff? Like, it's ridiculous. And then the audacity to say, this isn't infringing on your free speech. Well, then what the hell is at that point?
Well, yeah, here was a way that I was thinking about it after we had this conversation and then the recording fucked up, was what rights are violated if, let's say, I go to North Carolina and Hatman and I, like at a small club or something, did a live podcast. And let's say an Antifa member charged the stage and and tried to punch me, because obviously we both know that's not going to end well for him.
No.
But he's going through the table, and I'm breaking his fucking jaw. But but what rights is he trying to infringe upon? Think about it that way. Because what is a crime? Well, a crime is when you infringe upon someone's right. Life, liberty, property. You know, any of the following. And you have to go through some pretty big hoops to not get indicted on something. You know, I switched industries. I work in insurance now. And in insurance, liability is a big deal. And if you run into somebody's property, we're the insurer. If you have liability coverage, we're covering the damage that you dealt, but you're responsible for what happened, and the cops could charge you because you violated property rights.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if somebody tries to punch you in the face over what you're saying, in the Bill of Rights, what are they violating? Right out of the gate, it is free speech. They don't believe in freedom of speech, and their right to, they believe that their right to whatever has superseded yours. You know, the best way to think about rights is, yours end where someone else's begin. So, and that, if you think about it, that's the basis for a lot of laws. So, when you look at this, what I see is a group of people who, again, have come to a political consensus that they are there to judge the rest of the world. And they're going to do it through their platform. And I find that a bit deplorable. What happens if the electric companies start agreeing with this and they start cutting off power to Republicans? What if the water's run by the city, but cable companies as well, they see you, browsing Breitbart. They see you browsing the Daily Wire or Zero Hedge or something like that. Then what? So the National Review. Well, what then? And my thought is, when we see these sorts of things start to happen, there is a problem that is endemic, and we have to put our foot down as a country. And I think that we might be at the point where we have to put our feet down to make sure that a tradition of free speech is upheld. Because here's the thing. Certain people, if they get fucked with, like Stefan Molyneux, like Milo Yiannopoulos, like Alex Jones, well, they're going to be called kooks. I personally don't think Milo's a kook. I think he's just too trolly for his own good. But, and Stefan Molyneux has this problem of not pushing back against certain dumb ideas.
And we all know about Alex Jones.
Yeah, and we all know about Alex Jones. As I brandish my super male vitality here. That does nothing. I swear to God, it's shit. Anyway.
It just tastes bad.
It just tastes bad, yeah. It's, like, I don't feel, like, because when your steroid levels, increase, or your steroid levels, it's not a steroid from what I'm told, but when your testosterone levels increase, you're supposed to have more energy and stuff like that. I've been more lethargic. It sucks. The best benefits health-wise I've gotten this month are all from being in ketosis again. But anyway, sorry about that. But point being is that you can cut those guys off, and you can point to saying, okay, well, he had, let's use Stefan Molyneux, and let's say that YouTube cut his channel tomorrow, which could happen. You could say, okay, well, he had Nick Fuentes on. Nick Fuentes was at the Unite the Right rally the first time and has palled around with very far-right people. They could make that chain of logic, which is bullshit. I'm not saying it's legitimate, but they could make that chain of logic, and to a court, you'd have a hard time with that. You'd have to have a good counter-argument. Now, if you, let's say, censored Ben Shapiro, or Andrew Klavan, or somebody that you would consider more mainstream politics on the
Steven
conservative,
Crowder, for example.
Steven Crowder would be another good example. Who really are straight line conservatives. If you did that, then there's a problem. So somebody had said in the comments a while ago when I did that video on Alex Jones, it's like they're boiling the frog at this point. They're trying to see how far that they can push it. And it's hard telling where they're going to go next. Are they going to go towards comics YouTube? Because aside from Comicstorian and Comics Explained, a lot of the up-and-coming channels, myself not included because I don't consider myself up-and-coming anymore, are conservative in nature, or libertarian guys, or they just think that social justice warriors are stupid. So I don't know. I honestly do think it's going to have to be antitrust at this point. I hate that it's come to that, but this is what happens when people don't take the traditions of the United States seriously and they think that shutting people down because of hate speech is okay. Fuck that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a point where you have to say it's a private business. It isn't that much of an excuse anymore. Mm-hmm. I mean, are we really going to privatize the marketplace of ideas? Is that really what we want to do?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I've kind of been resistant to it, because you guys know how much I hate the government. But at the same time, we're almost pushed to a point where the government has to step in, and that's what I hate, that we're there. I think that's my biggest problem.
Purpose is to protect the people's rights.
Yes.
So.
You've converted me, Hatman. Congratulations. I've pulled you like ferociously more towards the right over these last couple of years, and now you finally got me. All right. Let's see here. Eclectic 1995 asks, from what I heard, illegal immigrants tend to vote for people who enact policies that cause them to abandon their homes to begin with. Why is this so? So I've actually had more time to think about this. Two things. First, I think that it's the communal aspect of poorer countries. They have to rely on their communities to survive. And I think that those ideas, they hear that from politicians on the left, and they think that that's going to work for an entire country. I think that's just that's a hypothesis of mine. So don't take that with a grain of salt. Another thought that I have is I just think that they buy into the excuse of it wasn't real socialism. I think that a lot of times that's the case. It's like, well, if we had a bigger country, or if we had more money, or if we were richer, then we could make this happen. No, it just doesn't work. Because there are other wealthy Western nations it's failed on. But that's just the general problem. And
we ran out of money to take. We need to find more.
Yeah, basically. And I don't have a personal problem with people from different countries at all. I'm not xenophobic or something. But what I will say is that there's a reason that integration is such an important concept when it comes to immigration. If you're not integrated into a society, if you don't understand why the society is the way that it is, then you're just going to fuck with it. And that's generally the problem. Is a lot of people have this tendency, and I don't think that it's just a thing outside. I think it's a lot of people who are these cushy rich kids who buy a Che Guevara shirt and suddenly think they're a revolutionary. Is they see all of these stories from different nations about these so-called revolutionaries, and they bring that shit to bear when they vote, and then all of a sudden everything's fucked. So I think that it's just naivete. I just think that's kind of the way it is. Hey man, what do you think?
Yeah. I think naivete, they don't know any better. I think also it has to do with more tradition too. It's like tradition, and sort of like what you said with communalism there. I think it's tradition because of that.
Yeah, Latino people, that is a lot of culture for a lot of Latin people, at least that I've interacted with. It's like everybody in the community knows each other. Because when I lived in Sauk Village in Chicago, which for those of you who don't know where that is, it's right by Chicago Heights. You go 3 blocks over and in one direction or another, or 5 or something like that, then you're in the Heights. But anyway, in Sauk Village we had quite a few Latino folks, and my dad was very close with them because we had kind of a interesting sort of a what did he call it? I think my dad called it a Neapolitan church once, when really it was just white and then a bunch of flavors of chocolate. Because it was white folks, Latinos, and black folks all getting together, and it was awesome. And but like Latino families, like they're very tight, and they're always tight with their relatives and stuff like that. And that feeling of community can sometimes go beyond, and they think that everybody should just be one big community. Mm-hmm. And my thought is that sort of shit should stop at the church, personally. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, it's an interesting element. I think that's a lot of the reasons why South American cultures tend to be like that. I think that a lot of the parts of the world in general really just have to start to understand a governmental philosophy that guarantees liberty and that those rights are God-given. Oddly enough, I have more hope for certain African nations that are becoming more Christian as time goes on to become better than I do Latin American countries, oddly enough. It's interesting how Christianity is starting to transform the continent of Africa. And I'm genuinely wondering when a day will come where China, which has the second largest Christian population in the world, goes capitalist. It's going to be like another United States. It's going to be crazy. And it's going to be awesome. And I'm looking forward to it. One day we'll see it. I have a lot of faith in that. Plus, I'm in a very good mood because I did great at boxing practice today, so... I've been told I have a great left hook and a great right cross. So, and those are my favorite punches. So I'm glad that I work on them. All right, I got nothing left on this question, Hatman. What about you?
Say let's move to the next one.
All right. Jerry wants to know, and Jerry's been here a couple weeks in a row. Welcome, Jerry. Why is it that the left thinks that universal health care would somehow be cheaper, yet every state that has tried to implement it has said to stop trying?
Because they don't know how to budget.
Yeah, I mean, I live in Illinois, so I know for a fact that Democrats don't know how to budget.
No.
You have some of the biggest insurance companies in the world are here in Illinois, and because you've got State Farm, Bankers Life, Country Companies, and a few others, and they've never had major financial issues, and when they have, they fix them, but our government has never been able to. And now we got this guy who's coming in who's running for governor named Bruce Pritzker, who is a fucking retard when it comes to taxation. He's a tax and spend guy. He wants to jack up all of our prices of car registration. He wants to take car registration to $500 a year.
See, that's
nobody's going to register their cars.
No, exactly. And that's the thing. Like they don't know how to budget. And they don't understand basic economics. So like, okay, well, if we just tax the rich people and the corporations enough and get rid of all the loopholes that they can get around to cut those tax numbers down, then we'll make all the money.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you have those people leaving the country, those businesses leaving the country, and then you're wondering, where did all the fucking money go?
Yeah. Because could you imagine what would happen to... So here in my city, in Bloomington Normal, State Farm, Country Companies are the two big companies here. What's going to happen if the taxes increase? Well, they've got places in big hubs in Texas. Suddenly, headquarters changes. Mm-hmm. And they're going to start moving stuff away and try to, cut down this state as much as possible. And you're going to see employees like myself move to a different state because that's where the money is. And they've got the lower taxes and the better food. I mean, so nothing is better than Chicago pizza. I can't eat pizza right now, so...
That's casserole.
No, it's pizza. It counts. It's got
dish pizza is a casserole.
No. It has a crust. It is therefore not a casserole. More of a pie.
I'll agree with that. I'll agree with that it's more of a pie.
That's kind of why I like it.
But no, it's like they didn't fucking learn after the recession.
No.
They didn't understand why businesses were moving jobs out of the U.S. They didn't understand offshoring. They didn't get it. It's cheaper it's better for them in the long run to do that because they will be able to make more money that way. Yeah, businesses exist to make a profit. That's not wrong. That's not evil.
Yeah, and we get people constantly say, well, yeah, that's kind of a duh. I'm like, well, then why the fuck aren't you learning when it comes to government then with that, you morons?
Yeah.
Because that was one thing I always heard from TJ Kirk. He's like, well, I already know that they're there to make a profit. Do you?
They're there to make a profit because that makes the stockholders happy, and that means the business is worth more. I mean, seriously.
People don't like to spend money unless they're making money in return.
Exactly. Buy some stock in a business. That's an investment. That's not that you want a good return on that investment.
Well, even then, like that's on the macro. Think of the micro even. Why do you buy a car? To get to work? You know?
Yep.
And to get to better work so you can make more money. You know, why do people look for cheaper insurances with higher deductibles? It's so they spend less money and they're already a good driver, so why on earth would they need, you know, really high insurance? Same with medical stuff. I take care of my body. Why do I need this super expensive, low premium health insurance if every checkup I've been perfect? You know, it's little things like that that make no sense. Why do they tell you to buy life insurance early? Because it's cheaper. You know, and I talk about insurance a lot just because I've worked in the industry for as long as I have. It feels like my entire time here in Bloomington Normal, I do two things. I am either a guard or I'm in insurance. But maybe what I'll end up doing, I'm going to create the very first bodyguard / insurance salesman job. I'm going to beat the shit out of people and tell them, you should have bought insurance. Wait, no, that would make me the mob. I am the kingpin.
Oh my God, you are Wilson Fisk. You are Wilson Fisk. Oh my God.
I'm actually thinking about, so Hatman knows this already, but the audience does not. I found a black suit from Joseph A. Bank on sale. Hatman, I want you to tell them, because how shocked you were, of what the original price was and then what I got it for.
Oh God, I don't even remember what the original price was. It was something
roundabout.
Like $500, wasn't it?
It was more than that.
Oh, it was okay. It was very fucking expensive.
It was close to $1,000.
Joseph A. Bank suit. Okay, see, I didn't even fucking realize that. I saw it for like $56, and I'm like, oh, holy shit!
And that's how much I bought it for.
That is insane for like just a normie suit.
Seasonal clearance.
Joseph A. Bank suit.
I know. Well, that's the thing is, you know, we're reaching the end of summer, and people don't like wearing dark colors in the colder months for whatever reason, which makes no sense to me. Darker colors are warmer. But so yeah, I got it on the cheap, and it'll be. And I've already got a Joseph A. Bank black shirt and a black tie. And I can actually hem the shirt so I can have cufflinks. So I'm thinking of shaving my head and face completely, and for Halloween this year, going the full Wilson Fisk. The Vincent D'Onofrio version. He does not wear white.
Nope.
Which I kind of like the black. It makes him feel sinister. Whereas, you know, white makes you feel rich. You know, but it's also a symbol of purity, and Wilson Fisk is not pure. But anyway... So yeah, I'm going to become the kingpin in IRL. Though now he's the mayor of New York in the comics. So look out for that one. Secretly beat the shit out of Cuomo.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Then I go on CNN and use his brother as a footstool. Alright, let's move on to the next one.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, so D. Garza had a fun one for us. What are the first 5 things that we would requisition for the Space Force, and why? So,
Lord.
I had to think about this a little bit more. So, I'm going to have two fun picks, and then more practical picks, but they're all going to be from science fiction. So, here's the first fun pick, is Gundams. Or rather, mobile suits for space combat. Because they can technically go from space, and some can go through re-entry and then land on Earth. So it could technically be a platform that can switch between the two. So I kind of imagined like a Gundam. Have you ever seen the O8MS Team Hatman?
No, I haven't.
Okay, you need to. Well, they had like a squadron idea, and I had a little bit more of like an advanced version. You have your Gundam as like your squad commander, then you have GIMs, and then you have what was the one in the original series that had the cannons on it? Was that the... God.
I don't remember.
I can't remember. I haven't watched the original version in so long. But, like, have those as, like, artillery support. You know? So, the gun cannon. That I think is it. So... No. The gun cannon was the one that had a beam rifle and then 2 artillery things on its shoulders. But that would work, too. Point being... that's the first thing. It's like mobile suits. Second thing would be dreadnoughts. Just because they're basically they're fucking awesome looking. Actually, no, that's a practical one. Because that would basically be the platform in which you launch your mobile suits. The other practical one would be power armor. Spartan style, I had thought about. Or, because he technically inspired it, Doom Guy style as well. So
that's not so much a Space Force as it is a Hell Force.
I'm going to hell and kick Satan's ass too. You're the cause of all this, you asshole! But so that's kind of practical, but still kind of fun.
I'd do a Spartan program.
Yeah, the other fun one that I had was Exterminatus. Because, yeah. Because Deus
why wouldn't
Vult,
we have the Exterminatus?
Basically. So, but we would just have it to where it just wipes out countries. We don't want to wipe out our own planet.
Deus Vult will become our motto.
Yes. Okay. Two more practical ones that I had was for space-to-space combat for fighters would be a necessity. Something like the X-Wing. And then bombers as well, so the Y-Wing. And by the way, fuck Ryan Johnson. Fuck Ryan Johnson for getting the concept of how Star Wars does bombs in space wrong. Fuck him. Because that's not how they fucking work. They accelerate towards the target. They're not traditional bombs. You can't drop a bomb in space. It's not a fucking depth charge. God,
but magnets! Fucking magnets. How do they work?
I know, right? I need a Ryan Johnson meme with him as the fucking juggalo with the paint.
Oh my god.
And it says fucking bombs. How do they work? All right. So that's my 5. Hatman, I know that you agree with most of those, so what would you add on top of that I missed?
Honestly, I don't remember what I had. I remember having the Exterminatus on my list.
Yeah, I actually didn't originally have it, so...
Yeah. The Spartan program, yes. Yeah, Gundams. I don't remember what the other 2 were. I don't remember what the other 2 were. So we'll default to that list, but Exterminatus in bold. Because that definitely needs to be on there.
Yeah. Spartans, I think, would look a lot cooler in, like, U.S. military-based armor, really, than what they wear now, like the solid colors.
Yeah.
All right. Final question for this recording, and then we got others, and you'll see the recordings switch, because I'm an idiot. So, Hardboiled Entertainment asks this question... Wants to know our thoughts on Dinesh D'Souza's Death of a Nation Rotten Tomatoes score. Is it more because a few critics even bothered to review it, or just the critic community is that far gone? I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. I think they are that far gone, and that makes them lazy.
Well, it's like they see Dinesh D'Souza's name attached to a property, and they go, "Oh, okay, it's this guy again. Just fuck it," you know?
Yeah.
It's like reviewing an Uwe Boll movie, for example.
Yeah.
If you see his name attached to it, and you're like, fuck it, you know. Or, well, I guess you can't say Tommy Wiseau anymore. But
yeah.
Ironically, you can't say Tommy Wiseau anymore.
I know, that's a weird feeling.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I think that's just kind of the long and short of it. Which is unfortunate. I like Dinesh, though I think his the way he approaches political alignment I don't agree with. Because it seems like the right is this tiny fraction and everything else is left. And I'm like, well, no, because you're looking at right just basically on size of government. And even then, you've got conservatives, neoconservatives who believe in more government than normal conservatives like myself. And then you've got the monarchists, and then you've got the fascists.
Yeah.
So, and one commonality between them, if you look at, political alignment on a straight line, is traditionalism, which is something the horseshoe theory does not factor in, is traditionalism. Or nationalism in general. The more you shift to the right, the more nationalistic you see groups. The more you shift to the right, or more of a blind nationalism. Closer to the center, nationalism is sort of checked by perspective, if that makes any sense. Because you'll notice that, I don't want to say this about anyone, because I have a lot of respect for Fritz Imperial and the Distributists, and they're further to the right than I am. There's a little edge of paranoia as well with some people who have those beliefs. It's much less common amongst mainstream conservatives. So, and I think that ignoring that is dangerous. I think that, like, saying the Nazis were right-wing is not correct. Or were left-wing, sorry, is not correct. They were definitely right-wing, but they were just
fascism is right-wing.
Yes,
for sure.
But they were just as authoritarian as the Soviets, who are left-wing.
Yes. Fascism is the extreme right-wing counter to communism, which is in itself an extreme left-wing. I mean, look through history. Fascism only rose to counter communism after it took over Russia.
Yeah.
That's what happened. They're both authoritarian. That's where they share similarities.
Yeah, it's basically...
But they are very diametrically opposed.
Yeah, they do very similar things. Bigger government, nationalization of industry. Hitler didn't nationalize nearly as much as Stalin did, but he did quite a bit of it.
Yeah.
Dictatorship,
absolute rule.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and that's just sort of something that you see. Now, the difference between the two has just been that fascism, because of World War II and how opposed the whole world was against it, it will always be seen as a negative, whereas communism, we still have to... We basically have to convince generations that this whole stigma of it being two dicks at equal measure is bullshit.
Yeah.
But then again, you also get these people who only know the Vietnam War through the eyes of Oliver Stone and Stanley Kubrick, and they think that that's everything.
Yeah.
There are some people that I've met that for some reason thought that Full Metal Jacket was based on a real story.
No, it's
not quite. No,
everything was way more complex. Cold War was way more complex than people want to give it credit for.
Yeah,
like U.S. in Russia, even in World War II, was an uneasy fucking alliance.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was not...
Well, Churchill kept saying, these guys are the next enemy.
Yeah.
Don't trust them too much.
Yeah.
Because that was a warning that he kept giving FDR, because FDR was very loose when it came to Stalin.
Well, he really wanted to get to Stalin because he wanted to make an ally out of him.
Yeah.
I mean, and if I remember correctly, the story of how he actually broke through was to make fun of Churchill.
Pretty much.
It embarrassed the fuck out of Churchill, and Stalin got a good kick out of it.
Yeah.
And then they were able to, form some kind of relationship out of that.
Yeah.
But, look at the way that it happened. That's,
Yeah, Churchill kind of looked at it like, I have to make a deal with the devil here.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what it fucking was. It was an uneasy fucking alliance.
All right, I think that pretty much answers the question.
Yep.
All right. Next question we got is from Chris Jones. Last political one says, why is it that so many people who are pro-Palestine tend to be anti-Semitic? I would think that's actually kind of answering your own question, personally.
Yeah, I would say so.
But just to explain, I mean, it's two sides of a fight, and as it stands, the Jewish people, everybody, every nation around them wants to destroy them.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of the doctrine of the Quran, is the elimination of Jews and the elimination of Christians.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that Dennis Prager put it really well when he said, the Jewish version of peace is that everybody lays down their arms. The Arab version of the Islamic version of peace is when every Jew is dead. And that's just the way it is. I mean, I fucking knew when I did that article about Jonathan McIntosh that he was a fucking anti-Semite. I could just tell by the way that he would talk about Israel on his Twitter feed. And then when I dug into it and read the old articles that he had written about he worked for a website called Electric Intifada. I mean, this guy has been cited at BDS marches and other marches where you've got people walking around with signs that say "Death to Israel." So it just, for some reason, because the Palestinians are the poorer of the two, they're the good guys. Not to mention a lot of people who believe this also read the book Orientalism by Professor Edward Said, who was from Palestine, big-time Palestinian apologist. I still hate the fact that Christopher Hitchens supported him, because I always thought that Said was a hack. But needless to say, you could turn Orientalism, you could rename it Islam Didn't Do Nothing. And it would be an accurate title. And there's a lot of people on the left that take Said's words and believe every word of them. Obama was one of them. If I recall correctly, he actually praised Edward Said's work more than once. I could be wrong on that. I might be thinking of a different politician. But that tends to be how it goes. I mean, in fact, look at the Obama administration, the way that they treated Israel, as opposed to how Trump treats Israel.
Especially in the last few months of the Obama presidency, too.
Oh, yeah. They even tried to influence the Israeli election to make sure that Benjamin Netanyahu would not get reelected. And you listen to how leftists talk about Netanyahu, and you'll be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, Jimmy Dore was on the Joe Rogan Experience and was saying that Netanyahu was this terrible person, was a genocidal maniac, and that there's concentration camps in Israel. Where? Show me on a map.
I mean, listen to how leftists talk about even Hamas.
Oh,
for God's sake.
They treat them like
it's...
Well, Abby something or other was also on the Joe Rogan Experience and tried to paint Hamas as this real freedom fighters, man. Abby Martin.
No.
And Abby Martin's full of shit. That was 3 hours of watching someone lie to somebody else. So, and you listen to just a lot of people like the Young Turks, they like to spread that bullshit. And it's just not true. And that's because they're anti-Semites. A lot of them are. I have no problem calling Jimmy Dore... Well, I think that he's of Jewish descent, but I have no problem calling him a self-hating Jew, if that's the case. Abby Martin, same thing. She's... Abby Martin is funded by the Venezuelan government. And that's another thing she went on onto the Joe Rogan Experience and lied about. So, yeah. I want to be on Joe Rogan someday. And I'm going to sit in front of him, I'm going to go, Joe, you have had people on this show that have fucking lied straight to your face, and I'm going to tell you all of them right now. And I'm like, we can spar later, and you can kick my ass if I upset you, but fuck, man. There's some liars that you've had on here. People that are just full of fucking shit. And a lot of them, when they talk about Israel, tend to lie about it.
Yeah.
I've had people email me who are Israelis who have thanked me for standing up against the lies that these people have put out there. Because they're like, there are no concentration camps in our nation. There was another guy, an Arab guy, who said that he doesn't understand who emailed me, he was a longtime supporter of the channel, emailed me and said, you know, I don't understand why my people hate the Israelis. I've lived among Jews for most of my life. I've worked with them. You know, I don't see the issue here. So, fuck them. I need a fucking button that plays the clip from Rambo. All right. Entertainment. We only have 2 questions this week.
Wow. Okay.
So, one is asking us about a former friend who recently crashed and burned. They want to know it's Koopa's Revenge wants to know our thoughts about the Mundane Matt situation.
Oh, Lord. I'll go ahead and get this out of the way. I really don't want to speak too ill of Matt, because I still am on good terms with him. I reached out to him and checked on him, make sure everything was okay after that infamous, or at least now infamous, kill stream and Mediker's video. And I think, honestly, he let it get to his head. He gave in and, you know, let his anger get the better of him, and decided that he couldn't put up with criticism anymore, and made mistakes and fucked up and made an ass of himself. And I honestly think he needs to come out, eat a little bit of crow, apologize for it, maybe take some time off and move on. Because if this is his career, then he needs to do something to save it, as opposed to just trying to ignore it and let it blow over. That doesn't work out. I mean, as someone who has, you know, been the subject of lots of criticism in the past, yeah, you have to be willing to admit that you fucked up, or you need to stop doing what you're doing and let that be the end of it. But like I said, this is his career, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't want to give that up. So you gotta sack up, you know.
Where to start?
Yeah.
I
know you've got some things to say.
I don't think I've ever told the whole story behind Matt and myself, because most people know that he and I were tight, you know, some years ago when I was writing for Tech Raptor. We got along great. I think that part of that is because he and I had a common opponent at the time. And he supported me in my writing through some rougher moments, and advised me on what to do when Brianna Wu came after me, and when I think that he was one of the guys who told me to write the In Defense of My Good Name article, which probably is the best article I've ever written. I mean, Hatman, you'll have to confirm that, but well, no, I think the Walsh one was better. But regardless, that was a
pretty damn good one.
Yeah, that one did end up being really good. The thing with Matt and I, we kind of fell apart when he had, you know, we butted heads on religious stuff. And, you know, he's an atheist. I'm obviously not. He's really tight with TJ Kirk. I fucking hate the guy. And it kind of came to a head over a business element of things. So some of you guys might remember about 1.5 years ago, almost 2 years, I had lost my job. I was a car salesman, lost the job within the first month. It was really embarrassing, and I had to beg for money to just keep a roof over my head before I started a new job. And Matt made an agreement with me to help him with a channel that he was starting called Forbidden Knowledge. And he's like, "Can you write these episodes for me and script them for me?" I'm like, "Absolutely." So I scripted several of them for him and had 16 episodes planned. And then at one point he just abruptly stopped asking me for scripts. And I had them all outlined. I was ready to go, and I'm like, "What the fuck?" But he gave me $400 to do the job. And time goes on. He asks me to do this, script him, top 5 reasons why to avoid Mass Effect Andromeda. And I don't remember how well the video did, But when I watched it, I thought it turned out pretty good. And then he just stopped asking me. And I asked him, you got anything for me or anything like that? And he just never had anything. So time goes on. I start doing catastrophe duty and guarding in Texas and stuff like that. And we got into a spat on Twitter. And it blew up. And I just said, all right, dude, I'm done with you. And I was pissed off as all hell. And, you know, I signed off. He messaged me a bit later. He's like, you know, I'm sorry I said that. I'm like, it's okay. You know, I feel better now. I shouldn't have said that. Da 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 da. And it's at that point where he drops a bomb on me. Says, yeah, you know, by my calculations, you only really did about $100 worth of work. I'm gonna need the $300 back. At the time, the plan was for Hatman and I for me to move out to North Carolina to transfer my job out there, and to start working out there. I think in the fall, and the two of us were going to have our own apartment and have a studio in it. And
yeah, this was about a year ago.
Yeah, we were planning on really expanding Micah and the Hatman, and when that happened, that and some other financial issues I came into, I couldn't afford the trip. So that basically has been put on hold indefinitely. And I won't lie, that situation really killed my momentum, kind of killed my online mojo. Because the channel was growing, and then after that, everything has just sort of gone downhill for me. Because I just, you know, sometimes I wonder to myself, and I'd be lying if I said that Matt sort of is the reason for this. I thought to myself, it's like, is this really a world I want to get into full time? You know, is this something that I want to do long term and constantly have the drama? And then other things that I saw happen to him, because let's face it, Matt made some friends, but he somehow made a lot of enemies. I don't know how, because I don't pay attention. After that moment, I didn't pay attention to his bullshit. I know that he refused to have a sit down with Aiden about him constantly plugging the fucking Steele dossier, and refused to talk to her about it. And that I thought was really cowardly, because I wanted to, you know, I think a lot of people wanted to hear his reasoning. You know, I was willing to, I would have been willing to listen. Like, why do you think this is legitimate? And you can't just say, I don't like Trump. It's got to be a reason. And maybe he didn't have a reason. Maybe it was just because he doesn't like Donald Trump. But as it stands, that's the background. With that said, I am bummed to see that he is just another scalp on Medicare's wall at this point. You know, I'm not giving that one to Ralph. I'm not giving that one to that, you know, the David Hogg of the alt-right, you know, James Alsop. That one goes to Medicare because he's been hunting for it for a while. You know, Jim won't admit it, but he's always fucking hated Matt. Always has.
I think we could all see that.
Yeah. So I am of the opinion that it's unfortunate. I don't hate Matt. You know, I'm not happy with him. I'm pretty pissed off at him, and I probably will be for a long time, but I don't hate him. You know, because I don't want him to fail. He's got a girlfriend and a kid. There are people who rely on him. But on the other hand, he probably should have, you know, because he's been constantly bitter about the right and Donald Trump winning the election and all this other stuff, to not think that maybe our side has some points. Matt's one of those guys that I think could have really done better if he bought the audiobook for Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, because there's one thing I think of when I think of a lot of people online, but I really think about Matt, and this would be my advice to him, because like I said, I would rather be his friend. I miss being friends with Matt. He was a good guy who supported my work, and he cheered me on in some pretty tough times when I really wasn't sure if I could go forward. And when the channel really blew up, he was the first person to DM me and congratulate me. So he's that situation hurt me, man. It really did. I thought I had a friend. And maybe I should, you know, Hatman's my friend. And yeah, I'm sorry. I don't want to get emotional. The whole thing is that there's a thing that Jordan Peterson says in that book that I think is probably one of the best advices for anybody on the internet. Make sure your house is in order before you criticize the world. Mm-hmm. And I think that I've worked very hard to make sure my house is in order. My finances are in order. I have a nice home. It's not super fancy, but it doesn't need to be. I'm not making like $100,000 a year yet, but I'm gonna get there someday, and I'm gonna be successful in one facet of my life or another, you know. And I'm gonna continue to learn martial arts, and my life has nowhere to go but up. And when you have this feeling in your life that you are entrapped by something, and Matt said he's in a dark place. If you feel you're entrapped by something, you have to get your house in order. You have to. That's what your new focus has to be on that. Whatever it is you have to do to get your house in order, do it, provided it's moral. In Matt's case, he should have sat down and said, I have a problem taking criticism. What do I need to do? You know, how do I need to approach this? Because that's a problem that I had for a long time. And my whole thing is this, is that there's two types of critics. There are constructive critics who legitimately want you to get better, and then there's people who just want to shit on you and they're crabs in a bucket and they just want to bring you down. You know, I try to filter, you know, the first people I listen to are the constructive critics, and I beg for constructive criticism all the time these days. I want it all the time. I want people to message me and say, hey, I thought you have a good idea here, but this could be better. Or, I don't like this because X or Y. I like you, but I think you could do better here. That's the kind of criticism that most people are perfectly fine in hearing. It's the truth. And the truth does hurt, but if you deliver the truth properly and you understand it's a learning experience, then you can continue going forward. Here's a good example. I got nailed by this kid who's taller than me, 6'4" guy I'm sparring with. And he's lighter than me, so he's faster. So I got my guard up, right? And I feint that I'm going to go for a hook, just kind of, and he catches me doing it, and he stings me with a straight right. Caught me right here in the mouth. And I'm like, whoa, okay, I'm awake now. And he didn't hit me full force, because it's just sparring, you know, you're not going hard. And he nailed me with it. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, but that's criticism. That tells me that if I feint with this guy with the hook, he's waiting for that tell and he's going to nail me. Next time, I'm not doing that. Next time, I'm going for the body jab instead. I hope he doesn't watch this. But needless to say, that's kind of what constructive criticism is. It's a punch in the face that you're learning from. You know, whereas criticism that is meant to hurt you and try to bring you down, and that crab in a bucket is like if you're going like 40% sparring and you're working your footwork and somebody just blasts you hard to the liver for no reason aside from just doing it. You know, it's a cheap shot.
Yeah.
And what you have to do with those, and Joe Rogan made a great point about this ages ago. He said, you kind of have to take it, and there's nothing wrong with saying fuck you to the guy who did that, because what they did was shitty. But you have to look at the situation and see if there's any truth you can take out of it. You know, and like I said, Medicare and his boys that he really likes, their whole thing is they like to bring people down. They're not nice guys. They're not good guys. You know, I've had my spats with Ralph. I have no interest in ever talking to James Alsop or Jim. And because they don't look at people like people. They don't look at this like something that they can make, that they can, you know, people can have a career off of, or at least Jim doesn't. I mean, I know Ralph is only in it for the money, and same with James Alsop. You know, he's playing to the alt-right because he wants to, you know, drain every penny out of that he can. I don't think he believes a word of what he says. But needless to say, these are not people who have people's good interests in heart. And, you know, I just think that he could have taken the situation better. I wish that he would. My advice in the future would be just simply, if you can't take that kind of criticism, if you can't take the hook to the body, you can't take that liver shot and learn from it, then the best thing to do is to just kind of distance yourself from those people. If you think that their criticism is invalid, legitimately invalid, like they're just trying to be an ass, you don't have to listen to them. You know, there's a reason that I'm not doing a back and forth with Captain Cummings. I don't care what he thinks at the end of the day. He's a dick. You know, he's a muckraker. I don't fucking care about muckrakers. I don't. You know, it'd be like me caring about the National Enquirer. Just, it's not in my character. I care about people who want to build people up. And I think that that is something we could just use something more of. I hope that Matt recovers from this. I hope that he gets his shit together. And I hope that, again, just he learns what he needs to do to keep this business, as he calls it, alive. Because he's lost a ton of subscribers. And it's just like, don't fucking nag at people. If you disagree with them, if you have a disagreement, don't try to do a fucking drama video about it. Invite them on. Because he tried to do one about Ethan Van Sciver. And if he had just says, like, let's do a live stream, me and Ethan, I don't agree with your point, let's have a talk. You know, if he had done that, it would have been so much better. You know, the big thing is you can't go for the easy click sometimes, because people will see right through it.
Yeah. Which, irony of ironies, now I'm seeing a bunch of channels trying to get that easy click by making videos about Matt, and of course, they're getting them. Like tens of thousands of views and whatnot. And of course, every single one of Matt's videos now is downvoted to hell. Oh, yeah. Despite the fact that it's getting a lot of views. That's what's happening. You've got people almost spite watching.
Basically, yeah.
That's not a good. Like I said, sometimes you just need to eat a little crow and come out in front of it.
Yeah. Take your lumps, drink the water, get up for round 2.
Yep.
And the last question we have is from Crystal Wing. He wants to know, what would happen if Capcom bought the rights to Silent Hill? Not who I would want to buy it.
No.
I want Sony to buy that. So that Guillermo and Kojima and why am I forgetting his name? Plays Daryl. Oh my god. Norman Reedus. So that they can do Silent Hills.
Yeah.
Because PT was brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
Like, when people start mocking, like, we don't know what Death Stranding's about, I'm like, PT was brilliant. Alright? Like, Kojima's got something in him that resonates with people. And I love Guillermo del Toro. So, but if Capcom bought it, I mean, I guess that they would probably try to do something with it. I would be interested to see if they try to get some of the original developers on it.
I'd be worried that they would either not be able to do it right, or you would see tones of Resident Evil start to blend into it, or tones of Silent Hill start to blend into Resident Evil.
Yeah. And
I wouldn't be able to keep things separate.
Yeah, I don't want that. I'm a big fan of Silent Hill 2. I've played a little bit of 3. I've never played the original. 2 is one of my favorite games of all time, and it's a classic. And I mean, hell, it's one of those games you have to play the original version of. If you play the fucking if you play the remaster, version. It's shit. Like, they changed all the voice acting. It's not the same. And they don't even give you an option for original dialogue either. And they removed the fog, which is kind of the point. So
yeah, how do you fuck that up?
I know. So anyway, my point is that I really wouldn't want Capcom to do it. I would be very, very depressed, honestly, and not to mention I don't think that they would have an interest in it anyway. just because they already have their horror franchise. I don't think that they're going to be looking for another one.
Yeah.
You know, there's a reason that they have never pursued like another Dino Crisis. You know. Hatman, do you have anything to add?
Nope. Except I think Capcom's got some other things that they need to get in order before they start worrying about acquiring any other IPs.
They're doing pretty well for themselves right now.
Well,
Monster Hunter World was a huge
Mega Man
success.
11 has yet to launch, and although it looks good, if it sucks, you can have a lot of people pissed off.
Yeah, but they're not looking at Mega Man 11 as a big moneymaker. That's why it's a digital download. I mean, their big things right now are Monster Hunter and Resident Evil.
Well, the last couple of Mega Man games have been, at least main series games, we're not talking like compilations and stuff, have been, digital only.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
well,
but
that's just because that style doesn't really take a lot of memory.
Yeah, but also consider that at one time that was one of their core franchises.
Yeah.
And it's one with a very rabid fan base now. So if you do wrong by them, I mean, come on, like they fucked up. I think it was like the 20th anniversary. Their Mega Man game was a Mega Man Street Fighter crossover. That was some horse shit.
Still, that, like, I think of that, and that is a down. Then again, Monster Hunter World is a giant success. I think it sold like 6 million or 7 million console copies worldwide, and just sold like 2 million on PC over the weekend.
That's pretty good.
That's amazing.
Resident Evil 7 has been a very good success.
It sold about 3 million copies. It's a little bit less than they were expecting on first month. They were expecting 4.
Reviews were still glowing.
Yeah, and then everybody's hyped for the remake of 2.
Oh God!
So
every new video for that I see, I'm like, I might actually need this.
I pre-ordered it, man. But regardless, you have to keep it that's what's the craziest part is. Think about it this way: Fallout 4 sold 1 million copies opening weekend on Steam. Fallout. Monster Hunter World beat it on PC. That's fucking crazy.
That is.
So, Capcom is in really good order right now. More so than they were like 4 or 5 years ago. They really, I guess it's kind of the theme here today, is taking the punch. They took the hit from Resident Evil 6 failing, and they're just like, all right, let's reevaluate. What do we need to do? What do we need to do to make sure that we're making all this money? Here's an idea. Let's bring Monster Hunter World, the next Monster Hunter game, to the biggest platforms. Then we'll put it on PC later. And let's bring Resident Evil 7. We'll make it first person, sort of like Outlast and shit. And we'll compete with them, and we'll have an American write the story. And they turned around. The only game that I would say that they're struggling with is Street Fighter V, but the most recent DLC season has gotten a lot of positive press. Because it brought back Sagat, Sakura, Blanca, and then prior to that you had Guile and Akuma returned. So it's they're starting to get their shit back together. They're starting to kind of learn from their mistakes. So, needless to say, though, I still wouldn't want them having Silent Hill.
No.
If there was a Capcom franchise that I would really like to see return, it would probably be Red Earth. Because it never really got the chance. It was only an arcade game. So. Alright. Well, I'm definitely titling this one Taking the Punch. Well, folks, that is it for the questions that we have for the Overflow this week. If you're just coming to this video, this is your first Overflow, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the video. And we'll be back this weekend with Micah and the Hatman. But until that time, my name is Micah Curtis.
And I'm Alex Baldwin, also known as the Hatman.
And we'll see you guys next week. Deus Vult.
Deus Vult.